The movie begins by introducing us to a couple, Nick and Maggie. They deeply love each other and have a happy family. However, one day, Maggie experiences severe chest pain. When she is taken to the hospital, it is discovered that Maggie has a life-threatening illness. Her only chance of survival is a complicated surgery, which requires skilled specialist doctors. Nick was worried about his wife. Now his wife was admitted to the hospital, so he has to take care of his daughter. It was difficult to manage everything along with his job. One day, Nick takes his kids to a robotics company, where his colleagues tell him that their robots not only look like humans, but also possess emotions, allowing them to better understand and interact with people. Listening to him, Nick notices that his daughter is missing. Being worried, he starts looking for his daughter in this exhibition. He doesn't find his daughter, but then a robot named Alice finds his daughter and brings her to him. He becomes relaxed. Then that employee finding his daughter with him tells him that Alice is a good robot. She knows well how to take care of the kids, and he had seen this. Even Isla likes Alice a lot. She asks her dad to buy this robot. Nick didn't know much about it, but at Isla's insistence, he decides to buy her and bring her home. Reaching home, Nick tells Alice about all the house chores and then go to shopping with his kids. In the evening, when they return home, Nick was surprised to see that Alice not only cleaned the house but all the things were managed. Along with it, Alice also cooked for them, but Isla doesn't like the food Alice cooked, because she liked the food cooked by her mom. It is shown in the night that when Alice put herself on charge, Isla goes to the kitchen and tries to pick up the cookie box through a chair. While reaching for the cookies, her foot slips, and she lets out a scream. Hearing her, Nick rushes out immediately. He sees that Alice has caught her just in time, preventing her from falling. Isla was saved now. That's why Nick likes Alice more, because she was taking care of his kids more than him. The next day, Nick goes to meet Maggie along with kids. Where Isla says, "Mom, I am happy with Alice, she has become a good friend of mine. She takes care of me." Hearing this, Maggie also becomes happy about this robot. The kids and Alice return home while Nick goes to his job. Here, he receives bad news. His company is laying off all the architects, because their work will now be handled by robots. Hearing this, he becomes furious and goes to his boss to find the truth, and his boss says, "You heard it right. I already fired most of your companions, but I will not fire you for now." Nick feels relieved to hear this, but he knows it's only a matter of time before they replace him too. He was tensed even when he came home and Alice noticed this. Alice asks him the reason, and Nick tells her that people are losing their jobs because of AI. If people will not earn, then how will they survive? Alice replies, "The time is coming when all the tasks will be done by us because we can done it better than humans." Alice's words made Nick anxious. Meanwhile, Nick gets a call from the hospital that it is Maggie's operation tomorrow morning. That's why he reaches Maggie as the morning appears. Alice was also with them. Maggie here loves her kids and then asks to meet Alice alone. Nick then leaves the room along with the kids, and Maggie shares her fear with Alice. She says, "I think something will happen to me during operation, and if this happen, you will have to take care of my kids." Nick gets scared of doctor's detail and finds out that the team who was supposed to come for Maggie is not coming due to some reason. Hearing this, Nick becomes furious. There was nothing in his hands and he can't do anything, so he comes home. His anger escalates at night. He is already stressed about his job, and now Maggie is not with him either. Seeing him frustrated, Alice comes to him and tries to calm him. She was gradually coming closer to Nick while doing this, and Nick doesn't like this at all. He leaves in his car, and when he returns home, he doesn't find Maggie in any of their family photo. Seeing this, he yells at Alice, and she replies, "I removed her from the photos because every time you see her, it will hurt you." But Nick doesn't like all this and he asks Alice to put Maggie's photos back. Saying this, he leaves the house and now was sitting with his friends. Many of them have lost their jobs, and for others, their jobs are at risk. They all were sad. Meanwhile, one of Nick's friends asks them to come with him. He takes them to the site where they were working nowadays. They open a container while using Nick's password, take out a robot from it, and Nick's friend destroys it. Doing this, he was taking revenge for losing his job. After this, they all leave. Nick also returns home. Alice again comes to him to give him a towel when he was taking a shower. She places a blindfold on Nick's eyes and comes closer to him. Nick feels bad in the morning because things didn't go well the night before. He apologizes to Alice, but she reassures him, saying, "No worries, it's my duty to take care of you and your kids." Nick becomes furious to hear this, so he leaves the house with Isla. Leaving Isla at school, he comes to his job and finds out that his company was looking for the one who destroyed their robot. His boss asks, "Someone opened a container while using your code. If you know anything, then tell us." Nick replies no. The tension increased so much, and in this tense situation, he gets a call. It was from the hospital and he was given a good news that Maggie's operation has been successful. Hearing this, he was surprised because the doctor's team hadn't arrived yet. Then he was told that not doctors but robots operated Maggie and now she is absolutely fine. Nick can take her to house. Hearing this, Nick brings Maggie home. Seeing their mom at home, her kids were also happy. Maggie also cooks for her kids at night. The kids like it much. During all this, we can notice jealousy on Alice's face. Maggie had to take rest for now, and when she was sleeping in the evening, he hears Isla's voice as she fell. When she goes downstairs to check on her, she falls due to the broken railing. She sees that Isla wasn't weeping but playing with Alice. Seeing her fell, Alice lifts her up and drops her in the room. Nick returns home late at night and sees Alice telling Isla a story in her mom's voice. He feels good to see this and comes to them. Alice then tells him that Maggie fell from stairs today. Hearing this, he rushes to Maggie and seeing him worried, Maggie says, "I am fine, Alice dropped me in the room. I fell because the railing broke," she says. Nick begins to suspect that Alice might have been responsible for it. Before he could ask Alice anything, his friend comes home who destroyed his company's robot. He tells Nick that the police found about me. "And I think you have told them about me, even there wasn't anything like this," but he starts hitting Nick in anger. Before he could end Nick with a knife, Alice comes out at the right time and saves Nick. She twisted his hand and then threw him out of the house. Now Nick and Alice come inside and Nick says to Alice, "You shouldn't have beat him like this." Alice replies that "I am programmed to protect my owner. He was hitting you and I just hit him back to save you." During this, Nick also talks about Maggie and Alice says "I will also takes Maggie's place after her death." This makes Nick furious and he says, "None can take Maggie's place, none, did you hear?" This was put in Alice's mind by Maggie at the time when she was in the hospital. But now Maggie has recovered and at home. When Nick leaves in anger, Alice says, "I will get you and I can cross all limits to make you mine." Saying this, she leaves the house, and we later see her at the home of the man who attacked Nick earlier. Alice tells the man, "You shouldn't have hit Nick, you know the consequences could be much worse." Hearing this warning, this man becomes furious and takes out his gun. But he doesn't know that there is more powerful robot in front of him and she holds his hand. After this, she points the gun at him. Before she could end him, this man's robot comes to escape him. But she fails because Alice shoots that robot without wasting any time and then shoots that man. The next morning, we see that Nick comes to his boss to request for his friend, that he has made a mistake but it would be better to forgive him than to make him arrest. He gets a shocking news from his boss that his friend was murdered last night. Hearing this, he understands that this is done by Alice. We see at home that Alice comes to Maggie's washroom as she was jealous of Maggie. Because she has feelings for Nick, she irritates Maggie and says, "I have got your husband Nick, I can make him happy more than you." Maggie starts shouting at her in anger. Alice replies, "Don't shout, you can ask Nick if you want to." Maggie now starts waiting for Nick in anger and as he reaches home, she asks him the truth. She asks what has happened between him and Alice. Here, Nick could have lied, but he didn't and tells the truth. Maggie has to come in anger after listening the truth. During this, Alice sees them from behind and then goes to their room. There was Nick's younger son. She takes his son near the bathtub. She starts filling water in it. Isla has seen Alice doing this and she immediately tells her parents that Alice is drowning their son in water. Nick and Maggie immediately come near the bathroom to save him but they find the door locked. Seeing this, Nick doesn't waste time and starts breaking it. When it was taking time, Maggie reaches her washroom from the roof through the window. Seeing Maggie here, Alice attacks her in anger. She lifts her up while holding her neck. Before Maggie could die, Nick breaks the door, comes inside and saves Maggie while hitting Alice with a lamp. Alice becomes furious seeing Nick doing this. The lamp with which Nick attacked Alice, Maggie cleverly turns its switch on. Due to this, Alice gets electric shocks and her programming fails. She was destroyed. In human language, it died. It is shown in the next scene that Alice's company comes and takes her away. Maggie was also furious at Nick so she also leaves with the police. The scene cuts. It is shown when the company was repairing Alice, there was a movement in her hand. Her movement was so dangerous that it caused all the systems there to start malfunctioning. Alice has hacked all the systems here. Then she hacks a robot's programming and orders it to kill the scientist. The robot kills the scientist. After it, the robot starts killing the company employees on Alice's command. Nick is shown worried sitting in the bar. Meanwhile, Alice comes to him. She comes here to confess her love but Nick was feeling bad for all this. He was about to leave but then Alice holds his hand so tightly that he feels pain. Nick realizes that he can't leave now, he has to manipulate Alice. He starts speaking to Alice sweetly, then deceives her by pulling out the wires on her face before escaping. Alice gets faint because of pulling out the wires. The scene cuts and we are shown Maggie in the hospital as her son was in the hospital. Now Alice comes to the hospital where she was. Alice hacks the hospital's computer and looking for Maggie's son's room. When the nurse forbids her to do so, she strangles her neck and kills her. She finds Maggie's room, but by the time she reaches it, Maggie has already left with her son. It is now shown that Nick is repeatedly calling Maggie, but Maggie's phone was left on the hospital's bench. Alice reaches the parking area while chasing Maggie where Maggie was about to leave with her kids, but then Alice comes in front and tries to end her. Nick brings his car there on the right time and hits Alice with his car. Alice moves away from Maggie for the time being, but Nick's car gets into a severe accident. He was also badly injured. Maggie immediately comes out of her car to see him and brings Nick out of the car. She sees that Nick was badly injured and was unconscious. Before she could do anything, Alice again attacks Maggie and tries to stab her a sharp thing while pushing her down, but Nick fails her attack on the right time while throwing her far from there. He threw Alice far so hard that she broke and finally, their life was spared. Nick was now admitted to the hospital where we see him happy with his kids and Maggie. Maggie has forgiven him and now they were again a happy family. Now, Alice is shown lying in her company during the film's post-credits scene. The company employees notice that their computers are functioning on their own. Someone has hacked into their system, causing it to malfunction and send incorrect signals to the robots. Alice receives a signal like this, causing her eyes to open. The story concludes with a mysterious ending, leaving the question of what will happen next unanswered. If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I am happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end.